Philosophies Revived.
Have you ever wondered if God is actually speaking to you? Imagine this, a quiet moment, and suddenly, there's this thought or feeling that feels out of place, something that seems to come from beyond you. Could it be that gentle nudge from God? It's easy to dismiss these moments as random, yet many believe they're whispers from a higher power, a subtle guiding force. Picture your mind as a complex radio, always scanning frequencies, constantly shifting between different thoughts and energies. Some signals are louder, others are more like background noise. But every now and then, there's that clear, resonant voice that makes you stop and think. So, could that be divine guidance? Could God really be speaking through the silence, through our very thoughts? Here's an interesting thought. Scientists believe that our brains are far from static. They're constantly changing and adapting. This quality, known as neuroplasticity, is like God's way of giving us the grace to evolve, to become better, to be open to growth. It's like a divine safety net woven into the fabric of our being, a system that allows us to recalibrate and start fresh when we feel lost. In many ways, our ability to change is a testament to something greater at work, a sign that we're not alone in our journey. In this video, let's dive deep into how the mind may serve as a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. How, if we tune our minds just right, we might find that we're not just hearing our own thoughts, but perhaps even tuning into God's whispers, guiding us every step of the way. The mind as a divine conduit. Our minds are not just everyday processors for managing daily life. Think of your brain as an antenna, constantly scanning the environment for signals, trying to make sense of the world. Some signals are ordinary, the thoughts we recognize as our own. But every once in a while, there's a thought or a feeling that feels special, almost as if it's coming from somewhere beyond us. Imagine the mind as a highway, filled with countless lanes. Some paths are familiar, traveled often by thoughts we revisit. But other paths might be more mysterious, leading us toward insights that we didn't know we were capable of having. This is where the concept of the mind as a divine conduit comes in. Neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to change and adapt, is like a built-in grace that allows us to shift direction, to expand and grow in ways we couldn't before. This adaptability, this capacity for transformation, is God's way of giving us a chance to become more attuned to something greater than ourselves. Our brains have the ability to open new pathways, much like tuning into a different frequency on a radio. We're designed to adapt, to evolve almost as if there's a divine hand guiding our minds, helping us to hear, feel, and understand in new ways. Maybe God designed our minds with this exact flexibility so that we could be receptive to subtle signs, gentle nudges that guide us toward truth and wisdom. The fact that our minds can adapt and grow is a testament to a divine blueprint within us. We're not meant to stay the same. We're meant to expand, to open our minds to new possibilities, and perhaps even to the possibility that God is speaking directly to us. Tuning into the divine frequency. Think of your mind like an old-fashioned radio dial. Back in the day, tuning into a specific frequency wasn't as easy as pressing a button. You'd twist the dial, sometimes getting only static before finally hearing the music. Our minds are similar. We sift through countless thoughts, emotions, and experiences, each one carrying a certain frequency. So what if some of those frequencies are actually divine in nature? What if, by making certain choices and living in certain ways, we could tune into those divine frequencies more clearly? Each choice we make, each thought we entertain, acts as a slight adjustment to that dial. Just as a radio needs the right alignment to reduce static and hear the music clearly, our minds need certain conditions to pick up divine signals without interference. This might mean choosing kindness over anger, patience over frustration, or even silence over noise. These small shifts are like fine-tuning our spiritual antenna, helping us reduce the mental clutter that keeps us from hearing God's whispers. What's amazing is that, just like we can train a radio to lock onto a station, we can train our minds to lock onto God's guidance. Every time we let go of negative thoughts or embrace a moment of peace, it's as though we're turning that dial just a bit closer to the right frequency. Over time, as we continue this practice, it becomes easier to recognize those divine signals amid the noise. It's like a direct line from our minds to God's heart, a line we can access whenever we choose to tune in carefully and thoughtfully. Spiritual practices as fine-tuning tools. Just like any instrument needs tuning, our minds need practices to keep them in alignment. This is where spiritual practices come into play. Think of them as the tools to fine-tune our minds to the divine frequency. When we pray, meditate, or even take a moment for gratitude, it's like we're adjusting the settings on our internal radio. Prayer becomes a way to share our thoughts with God, and meditation, in particular, helps us clear out the clutter. It's like pressing reset on a device, making room for something fresh and meaningful. Imagine you're trying to find clarity in a crowded room filled with noise. That's what our minds are often like, constantly buzzing with to-do lists, worries, and plans. When we sit in stillness, even for a few minutes, it's as if we're turning down the volume of all that background noise, allowing a subtle, quiet voice to come through. This is the practice of tuning in, of actively creating space for God's whispers to enter our lives. Even sacred texts can act like a calibration tool. As we read, we align our thoughts and intentions, focusing on wisdom that's been passed down for centuries. These practices aren't just religious rituals, they're like exercises for our brain, helping it become more flexible and open to spiritual insights. Each moment of reflection, each instance of gratitude, strengthens our ability to hear and understand. It's like clearing a path, making it easier for God's guidance to find its way to us. So, by embracing these practices, we're not just maintaining our mental and spiritual health, we're actively fine-tuning our inner selves to hear the divine frequency more clearly. The law of cause and effect, a divine blueprint. One of the oldest spiritual principles, the law of cause and effect, states that every action has a consequence. This isn't just a religious or philosophical idea, it's also deeply rooted in neuroscience. Imagine that every thought, word, and action is like planting a seed in the garden of our mind. Over time, these seeds grow into pathways, well-trodden roads in our brains that define how we think and act. So, if we plant seeds of kindness, patience, and compassion, we're creating mental paths that lead us toward divine insight. Every positive choice, every act of love or patience, becomes part of our mental landscape, making it easier to feel connected to something greater. It's almost as if each decision reinforces our connection to God, helping us form a bridge between the mind and the divine. Neuroscience calls this process neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and form new connections. Spiritually, it's God's design, allowing us to change and evolve through the choices we make. This principle reminds us that we have a certain power over how closely we align with the divine. By choosing actions and thoughts that bring us closer to God, we're also shaping our brain in ways that make it easier to receive spiritual guidance. It's like following a path that's been laid out for us, one decision at a time, each choice drawing us nearer to divine wisdom. In a way, the law of cause and effect isn't just about accountability. It's a blueprint, a roadmap guiding us toward a closer relationship with God. Words and thoughts as spiritual signals. Our words are more than just sounds, they're vibrations that carry energy. Think about it. Every word you speak or thought you entertain shapes the environment within and around you. Scientists tell us that words impact our neural pathways, but from a spiritual perspective, they also act as signals that align us with higher or lower frequencies. Imagine each word or thought as a ripple in a pond. The way it impacts the water can either spread calmness or create turbulence. Have you ever noticed how positive words make you feel uplifted, while negative words seem to drain your energy? This isn't just emotional, it's physiological. Words of love, encouragement, and understanding have the power to open our minds and hearts, making us more receptive to divine messages. On the flip side, words filled with anger or resentment create a kind of mental static, making it harder for us to connect with the divine frequency. It's like trying to have a clear phone call with a weak signal. There's interference. This is why many spiritual traditions emphasize mindful speech and positive thinking. When we speak words of kindness, our brains form pathways that align us with love and understanding, which are often seen as divine qualities. By consciously choosing our words and thoughts, we can set the stage for a deeper connection with God. It's as if, through our language, we're shaping the very channels through which divine guidance flows into our lives. Words aren't just communication, they're invitations for divine presence, each one carrying us closer or further from that source of wisdom. Emotions as pathways to divine connection. Now, let's look at emotions. Our feelings are powerful, and they're more than just reactions. They're also doorways to a spiritual connection. Think of emotions like different states of weather within us. Some days, it's sunny, and we feel open and connected. Other days, it's stormy, and those clouds can obscure the clarity we crave. This inner climate affects our ability to tune into God's whispers. When we're calm and at peace, our mind becomes like a clear lake, perfectly still, able to reflect the beauty of the divine. But what happens when we're filled with anger, resentment, or fear? It's like static on a radio, interfering with the divine frequency. Many spiritual teachings talk about the importance of managing our emotions, not to suppress them, but to transform them. If we carry unresolved anger or sadness, it's like holding a storm within us that clouds our perception. Just as a lake becomes murky when stirred up, our minds become clouded when we're overwhelmed by negative emotions. This isn't just a spiritual idea. Neuroscience tells us that chronic negative emotions can actually alter our brain structure, reinforcing stress pathways. When we work on cultivating peace, gratitude, and compassion, it's like calming that inner lake, creating an environment where God's whispers can be heard more clearly. By practicing emotional awareness and choosing to let go of burdens, we're not just helping ourselves feel better, we're also opening a channel for divine wisdom to flow into our lives. A peaceful heart becomes a natural receiver for spiritual guidance, just like a clear sky lets the sun shine through. The role of choice in aligning with divine will. Our lives are shaped by choices, thousands of them, made consciously and unconsciously every day. Each choice is like a step, either guiding us toward clarity and spiritual connection or adding noise to our path. Imagine your mind as a field and each decision as a seed you plant. Over time, those seeds grow into patterns, habits, beliefs, and mindsets that shape who we are. The incredible thing is, each of us has the power to choose which seeds to plant. God granted us free will, a gift that allows us to actively shape our own lives and spiritual journeys. Think about it this way: every time you choose kindness, patience, or understanding, you're nurturing a path that brings you closer to divine wisdom. On the other hand, if we choose negativity, judgment, or impatience, it's like creating barriers between ourselves and that connection. Our choices literally shape our brain, forming pathways that make it easier or harder to recognize God's guidance. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, but spiritually, it's our way of aligning with or diverging from divine intention. This law of choice reminds us that we are co-creators in our own lives. By consciously choosing actions and thoughts that resonate with God's qualities, love, patience, forgiveness, we align ourselves with a divine frequency. Each choice becomes an opportunity, a chance to draw nearer to a sense of purpose and understanding. Embracing this gift of choice and using it wisely brings us into harmony with the divine plan. We're not just passive listeners, we're active participants in our spiritual connection, capable of tuning our minds to hear God's guidance. So what if those moments of insight, those gentle nudges you sometimes feel, are more than just passing thoughts? What if God is constantly speaking to us, weaving guidance into the fabric of our thoughts and experiences? The mind, in all its complexity, serves as more than just a tool for daily life. It's a bridge, a conduit for something beyond the physical world. When we look at our brain's capacity for change, for growth, it's hard not to see a divine blueprint guiding us. It's as though God designed our minds not just to think, but to connect. Every choice we make, every emotion we feel, and every word we speak brings us closer or further from that connection. The incredible part? We have the power to nurture this bond. By choosing love, kindness, patience, and reflection, we're clearing the path for divine wisdom to flow into our lives. Our minds become like finely tuned instruments, sensitive to the gentle whispers of guidance that can so easily go unnoticed in the noise of daily life. So, the next time you're quiet, when you're reflecting or even praying, listen closely. Those subtle hints, those moments of intuition, they might just be God's way of speaking to you, guiding you. We don't need a loud, booming voice from above. Sometimes, all we need is a moment of clarity, a quiet mind, and an open heart to recognize the divine message. In the end, perhaps God is always speaking, always guiding. The true task is learning to listen, to fine-tune our minds and hearts, to hear the gentle whisper of the divine in the vastness of our own minds.